Here we go, folks. The first hearing for the case against Israel filed by South Africa at the International Court of Justice will be next week on Thursday, January 11th. Today, Tuesday, January 2nd, a spokesperson for the Israeli government has said that Israel will be appearing before the International Court of Justice in The Hague to contest South Africa's accusations of genocide. As I've covered, last Friday, South Africa asked the ICJ, or the International Court of Justice, for an order declaring that Israel is in breach of its obligations under the 1948 Genocide Convention in its crackdown against Hamas. I'm going to give you a brief summary of the case that South Africa has brought against Israel. It's really well summarized here at internationallawobserver.eu, so you can Google that to read more details. Here are the main grounds of the complaint. So it is that the acts and omissions by Israel are genocidal in character because they are intended to bring about the destruction of a substantial part of the Palestinian national, racial, and ethnic group. And South Africa says these acts in question include killing Palestinians in Gaza, causing them serious bodily and mental harm, and inflicting on them conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction. The acts are all attributable to Israel, which has failed to prevent genocide and is committing genocide in manifest violation of the Geneva Convention, and which has also violated and is continuing to violate its other fundamental obligations under the Geneva Convention. Okay, this bit is also really key, and a lot of people were asking about this. In their application, South Africa emphasizes the importance of placing these acts of genocide in the broader context of Israel's conduct toward Palestinians. So not just from October 7th, during its 75-year-long apartheid, its 56-year-long belligerent occupation of Palestinian territory, and its 16-year-long blockade of Gaza. And they explicitly include in this serious and ongoing violations of international law, including grave breaches of the Fourth Geneva Convention and other war crimes and crimes against humanity. The Fourth Geneva Convention, by the way, is relative to the protection of civilians in armed conflict. Okay, also this next part is so key, especially for my account. You all will know if you've been following. This is why all of the calls for ceasefire that we've seen over and over, stronger and stronger from more and more voices that people feel like aren't doing anything, this is why they're important. A detailed account in the application by South Africa is provided of the calls to prevent and stop the genocide by world leaders and state representatives, UN experts, and the UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. All of these calls are so important, even if they cannot on their own from one day to the next just end the conflict. They can't just end violence on their own, but this is why they're important. These are some of the forms and acts of genocide that South Africa cites Israel as committing against Palestinians in Gaza. That they are, number one, engaging in killing Palestinians in Gaza, including Palestinian children in large numbers. Number two, causing serious bodily and mental harm to Palestinians in Gaza, including Palestinian children, and inflicting on them conditions of life intended to bring about their destruction as a group. Some of these conditions are expulsion from homes and mass displacement alongside large-scale destruction of homes and residential areas, deprivation of access to adequate food and water, deprivation of access to adequate medical care, deprivation of access to adequate shelter, clothes, hygiene, and sanitation, and the destruction of the life of the Palestinian people in Gaza, and imposing measures intended to prevent Palestinian births. So this application by South Africa also details various expressions of intent of genocide by Israeli ministers and others, all of the times that people representing the state of Israel have expressed genocidal intent, and I covered those in my previous video, so I won't cover them here. Two more key things. So number one, there are specific things that South Africa has requested the court, the ICJ, declare about the state of Israel and their conduct. And number two, they have specific asks for provisional measures to be taken right away. So it asks that the court declares that Israel has breached and continues to breach its obligations under the Genocide Convention, and that it must cease any acts that are in breach of these measures, including acts or measures which would be capable of killing or continuing to kill Palestinians, causing them bodily harm, etc., etc. They also ask that the court must ensure that people committing genocide, conspiring to commit genocide directly and publicly inciting genocide, etc., etc., are punished by a competent national or international tribunal. It also asks that the court demand that Israel performs obligations of reparation toward Palestinian people. So as they write here, that includes, but is not limited to, allowing the safe and dignified return of forcibly displaced and or abducted Palestinians to their homes, respect for their full human rights, and protection against further discrimination, persecution, and other related acts, and for Israel to provide for the reconstruction of what it has destroyed in Gaza, consistent with their obligations. So here's what they're also asking the court to do immediately. They say, in light of the extraordinary urgency of the situation, South Africa has sought an expedited hearing for its request for the indication of provisional measures. So they're also requesting of the court in this application an immediate ceasefire. So they've requested the president of the court to protect the Palestinian people in Gaza by calling upon Israel immediately to halt all military attacks that constitute or give rise to violations of the Genocide Convention. So as they explain here, as a state party to the Genocide Convention, South Africa has requested the court, as a matter of extreme urgency pending the court's determination of this case on the merits, to indicate the following provisional measures in relation to the Palestinian people as a group protected by the Genocide Convention. So the first is that the state of Israel immediately suspend its military operations in and against Gaza. Second, the state of Israel shall ensure that any military or irregular armed units which may be directed, supported, or influenced by it, as well as any organizations and persons which may be subject to its control, direct, or influence, take no steps in furtherance of the military operations referred to point 1 above. Number 3, the Republic of South Africa and the State of Israel shall each, in accordance with their obligations under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in relation to the Palestinian people, take all reasonable measures within their power to prevent genocide. And then number 4 is basically calling on Israel, in accord with its obligations under the Convention, to cease all of these activities that were listed before as forms and acts of genocide. It also calls upon the State of Israel to take effective measures to prevent destruction and ensure preservation of evidence, and for Israel to submit a report to the court on all of these measures that are laid out within this order within 1 week and at regular intervals until the court makes the final decision on this case. So those are the highlights. Now, it's extraordinary that the first hearing is happening so soon. It's happening next Thursday, January 11th, and that will be concerning the provisional measures that I just mentioned because they're given priority because of their urgency. So now we wait till that hearing to see what happens, but we also wait in the meantime to see what other voices come out in support of this application, because I am certain that other states will come out officially in support of it.